All right, everyone, welcome back. Today, I'm going to start off with a quick question. What is your identity? Who do you identify as? So, for example, you might be thinking, okay, what in the world does that even mean? We kind of went through a little like a political season that everybody was like pointing fingers at this person and that person, and all kinds of chaos was being stirred up because of that. But today, I really want to dive deep into who you are. I want you to think deeply of who you are as far as who do you identify as being. So, for example, I was listening to an episode or a podcast, a different podcast the other day, and he was kind of going through this subject, and I thought to myself, wow, that's deep, right? And so hopefully I'll be able to articulate it the best that I possibly can. Greg's on here with us again today, and we'll definitely have a back and forth. But I thought that it was a deep enough and a good enough conversation or a topic that I definitely wanted to bring it to your light or to your awareness, right? As far as on this podcast, to really think about it, to really understand that until you identify or recognize your identity, who you identify as, you really can't grow beyond that. You really can't. It's almost like it's a threshold, right? Or it's a ceiling. So, for example, some identities that you may or may not even be aware of, but these are pretty simple ones. But like if you're a smoker, you go around, you proclaim that you're a smoker. Or vice versa. You can be a non-smoker and you can proclaim that I'm a non-smoker. Same thing with drinking, same thing with any of the other, addiction type things that are out there in the world. I just want to kind of throw that out there as an example of what your identity could be, and just kind of give you a bit of a taste of the discussion that we're going to have here today. I'm super excited that you decided to join us here today. First off, let me thank you for doing that. And hopefully we'll add a ton of value into your life on today's episode. So without further ado, let's bring on Greg and let's just have a conversation about identity, what that even means, how we can understand what ours are. And then that way we can start questioning some of the things that are going on in our life. And then that way we can grow beyond that identity to this dream life, right? That we're all trying to achieve. So anyways, thoughts on that, Greg?
Identity. Yeah, it's a great topic. It can kind of float between philosophical, personal development. When people ask, tell me about yourself, a lot of people, they kind of go into like, where you're from, what do, what do you like? Is that your identity? Yes, it's part of your identity. It just depends on how you want to frame it, right? It's kind of, it's your identity. So however you want to articulate that to the outside world and what you believe in yourself, right? I think that's kind of what we're more talking about on this one
Right. We
is
are.
what you're telling yourself, and how you self-identify, with your thoughts and actions and goals and desires. And we can kind of get it all into that. But identity it's a cool topic. I love, the personal development side and then the philosophical side. You can kind of go back and forth. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I wanted to, I shared some of the kind of general things there at the beginning, but yeah, it's really your core beliefs of who you think you truly are. They can come down to, so I like to say a lot of times, right? My I am statements. I like to repeat my I am statements. So that would maybe be the first thing to start for yourself is that when you say that to yourself, when you say I am, what comes to mind? Who are you? So it's that saying of be, do, have, right? So a lot of times, like Greg said, a lot of times folks will ask you, well, who are you or what do you do? And we always kind of default to go into what we do, right? Our vocation, what we are busy doing, which is fine. Like you said, that is part of our identity, but at the same time, it's who are you being? And I think that's the part of the conversation with the personal development side that I really wanted to kind of dig a little deeper in today's conversation and see if we can't, challenge some of the beliefs that maybe you've been brought up to believe that are 100% true. I believe it was on the last episode. I'm losing track. I edit and I obviously produce the podcast, right? So I'm losing track of which episode it was. But Greg, you had a great quote the other day. So that saying you were coming up with just the other day was like, just because you believe it doesn't make it true. And that's kind of goes along with this identity. Just because you believe that's your identity doesn't make it true. And so that's where I just want to challenge that part with this conversation today. Anything else on that? Help me out with that. That you came up with that quote or you shared that quote with me. That was to me that was like I was like, wow, that's super powerful, right? To even think that that's even possible.
Yeah. And I think I heard that from a podcast. But yeah, beliefs are, at least from what I understand anyway, or what I believe, beliefs they can create or they can destroy, right? They can be negative or they can be positive. If you believe, you're never going to be rich and successful in your, business or relationship, then that's going to be negative. That's going to probably hold you down, and it's going to put you in that victim mindset of, I don't deserve to be in a relationship, or I don't deserve to be, a successful business owner. But if you truly believe the opposite, that, you do deserve a loving relationship and a great business and success, whatever that means to you, then it just goes the other way, right? It's kind of like having a positive or negative mindset. It's the same thing, but your beliefs, they carry a lot of weight, just like a positive mindset does. And alternatively, the negative mindset is going to put you on the other side of that coin, where you still believe in something. It's just you believe in the negative side of it, not the positive, if that makes sense.
It does to me, because I would say that most of my upbringing, and maybe you can relate to this, Greg, and even out there, folks, if you're listening to us today, most of my upbringing, it felt like it was a lot of pessimism. Like there was never a lot of optimism within our family, right? It wasn't that we were poor and trying to scrape together food. And I mean, we had the basic things. I would say that my parents loved me, and they did, but they were never optimistic about their future. They were never optimistic about doing things or becoming what they chose to do, right? It was always felt like their beliefs were holding them back to going out and achieving whatever they felt like they deserved. So it just kept us small. I felt like it kept us small and kept us small forever, which then bled on to me and my beliefs and who I started to identify as. As I've started to go through my personal development journey, and I've shared this multiple times, is that what I've had to discover is that, especially with parenting, I was parenting the way my parents parented me. Now, I'm not saying it was good or bad, because I'm not saying they were beating me and abusing me, and I'm not accusing them of any of that. But I will say there were certain things that they did that I took on as almost like a habit, or I guess maybe it became a belief that this is how I then need to parent my children. That now that I've looked back on it and I've raised my kids, it's like, wow, I didn't need to do that. That was a belief. That was an identity that I took on for myself that I didn't question. I didn't challenge. And because of that, I led a life, right? I led a phase of my life, let's say 20 years of my life, where I wasn't exactly living what I wanted to do, what I should have been doing, right? Encouraging more, loving more, multiple different things. We don't need, this isn't a parenting podcast. That's not what I'm just trying to drive home the point that the beliefs that I had based on those previous experiences with my own parents kept me thinking small, kept me not wanting to grow, to become a better father for my son and for my daughters, or even for my wife. But the good news is that once I discovered this, once I realized that identity was what was holding me back, those beliefs, I was able to shift it. I was able to quickly understand, okay, I don't want to identify that anymore. And that's what I really want this big takeaway for folks listening to us today. Everything in life is a choice. Now, so then you'll get the pushback. Well, it's like with my parents. I didn't choose that from my parents, and they're correct. But I have the ability to choose how I respond or react to whatever is going on in my own situation, right? I have the ability to choose and respond to what's going on in my mind at any given time. That's the choice that you've been given. So with that choice, you have the ability to change it. You can change it immediately. You can change it today. You can decide, okay, so for example, we're going to go back to the smoker or the drinker idea, right? I've said on this podcast, it's been a few weeks ago now, that I would consider myself a drinker, but not a drunk. I mean, I don't drink to get drunk. I enjoy bourbon. Bourbon is good. I like it. Whiskey, good stuff. Love it. Beers every now and then, good stuff too. So yeah, I would almost identify as a drinker. Now, if I choose to change that, and quite honestly, I'm working on that. I'm trying to change that identity, because I don't see the positives of it in my life today. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to identify as a non-drinker every day. So it's not that I was addicted. So I don't feel like there was an addiction to it. I used to be a smoker as well when I was a kid, going into my 20s, probably up into my 30s. I was addicted to cigarettes. There's no doubt about that. You talk about withdrawals. That was rough, and I did it cold turkey. And yeah, that's so. If smokers out there, I get it. That's not fun. But I wouldn't consider myself, an alcoholic or addicted to alcohol. So I just have to change that identity. I have to choose in my mind that I'm not going to drink. And we'll see where that takes me. It's a day-to-day process. But the point I want to make with that little bit of a story there, that it's my choice. I get to choose that. And that's where, once again, when you get in the driver's seat of your own life with that mindset, that's when you can start making some significant changes in your life, because that change, that identity change in myself, it's going to begin saving me all kinds of money. Do you know how much alcohol costs, Greg?
I'm not a big drinker, so I
know
not.
You're not. That's why I threw that out there to you. But those of you that are, it's not cheap. It's very expensive. I'm going to save a ton of cash that I'll be able to invest in other areas, right? Even if I'll be able to invest in myself, maybe attend a few more courses, buy some more books. Who knows what I'll be able to do with that income? I can invest it into some income streams, right? Yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do with it. But anyways, that was kind of a little bit of a run on there, but at the same time, I just wanted to show some examples of how I've used identity in a negative way, but then also how I'm also in current day-to-day form, who I am today, trying to change who I am to become this better version of myself moving forward. How about you? Anything like that for yourself, Greg?
Yeah, I think what you're kind of talking about, it bleeds into, the stories that we tell ourselves, because that's basically what our identity is, right? Of, if you're a drinker, you're not a drinker, if you're in the middle, doesn't matter. And I know from my experience, when I was overweight, my old story was that I was meant to be overweight. I couldn't change. I didn't deserve to be healthier or slimmer.
Can I push back? It's not even a pushback. It's more of a question. So those were your beliefs, the stories that you're running in your mind. Did you pick those up from other people, or where did those stories come from? Does that make sense where I'm asking? Meaning, did you come up with those stories on your own, or were people telling you that? Where did you come up with those stories?
I mean, honestly, I think it probably came from childhood, because I was a chubby kid. In high school, I thinned out, because I was, playing sports and everything. But even in my mind as a high school kid, I still had that, like, oh, you're chubby, you're not good enough, or, that kind of talk. So I think I've had that story pretty much my whole life, until I've decided to make that change of, I'm done. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I want to achieve what I'm seeing other people achieve. And if they can do it, I can do it. And it's totally true. So yeah, so now the story is, I'm healthy and I take the right actions. I'm a role model to some people, as far as what I've done and what I continue to do. So yeah, it's a story that you tell yourself, and you can change that story. It's not easy, but once you do it, it gets easier and easier. Another example, you mentioned like alcohol. I'm not a big drinker. I probably drink like maybe 2 or 3 times a year with like family, or even around holidays. But this past holiday and Christmas, I didn't have any drinks, and the rest of my family did. And we were having a conversation, and, just saying, oh yeah, Greg's not a drinker anymore. And that kind of like, so they kind of knew, even just from like the past year of, Greg's focus on his health. He's not a big drinker. And they even said like, yeah, Greg's not a drinker, which is not technically true. He'll have a drink here and there. But in that conversation, they knew I really wasn't going to contribute much, because I'm not going to talk about this drink or that drink, or, going out and having a good time, because drinking to me, it just it doesn't push that button for me of joy. But that story to tell myself, yeah, I'm not a drinker anymore, it was much easier after I told myself I was, I'm healthier, I'm skinnier, and I lost the weight. So that was the biggest hurdle for me. But then after that, changing another story was pretty simple. So it gets easier and easier as you do this.
So the beliefs can be brought on by other people. It's like you mentioned about how you just were kind of growing up, and that's just kind of how you started to think and believe about yourself. These are just the thoughts that are running through my mind, is that there are so many, whether it's through the school system. So it's even like worrying so much about what other people are thinking about you. is so much wrapped up into what our current beliefs are, right? We always want to try to fit in. When I say we, that's a very broad statement. I just mean that like we as humans, we want to fit in, right? We want to be accepted. We want to have friends. And sometimes in order to keep those friends, you've got to do things or challenge your keep your beliefs maybe that keep you maybe stuck in a place where maybe you really truly don't want to be. And sometimes that's the hardest thing. I'll refer back to a Jim Rohn quote. I might botch it up a little bit, but he talked about the most important day, or one of the most important days you'll ever have, is the day that you decide that you're never going to go back to who you were before. Meaning it's like you're going to let go of the past and start stepping into this different, better version of yourself. And when you do that, it's challenging. I would 100% admit that, right? So I've changed and tried and pivoted, and as I mentioned, was I a great father? I wouldn't say great. My kids might say I was pretty good, but at the same time, I needed to get better, right? So I'm trying to do that now differently with my grandson. I'm with him 90% of the time. And so now I'm trying to be that person, that person that I know that I could be, that I should be, that, like you said, it's almost like it's joy. It brings joy into my heart to try to become that person. I know, for example, and we're just using this alcohol as an example, folks. So there's no judgment here. That's the beauty of it. It's your life. You can choose to do whatever you want. I'm just bringing it to your awareness that maybe you just need to question whether or not that belief of who you are, that identity that you've taken on for yourself, is it accurate? Is it who you truly want to be? So when I started to think about myself and with my family, with my grandson, growing older, getting better. So health is such a big pillar of my life. And we talk about that, health, wealth, and legacy here on the podcast. I really sat with myself and I'm like, okay, I'm here talking about health and wealth. And we talk about health is wealth. How can I keep doing that to myself? That's just dumb. So these are the thoughts that are going on in my mind, which then led me then to just making a decision. Okay, well then I've got to stop. And as I mentioned, even with my smoking, I'm more of a cold turkey, just cut it off. I can't do the whole weaning thing. I don't just, I'll try a little today and a little tomorrow. And I'm either all in or I'm all out. That's just my tendency. But that's because I've done this a few times. Now, will I have a drink every now and then? Probably so. I mean, like you said, different occasions. I might have a beer at something at a cookout or something like that. But I'm not going to consume more than I should or more than I want to at any given time. Now, will that impact the people around me? Like what you're talking about, right? Your family. Your family's going to notice these things. Will they say things about you? Maybe. Will they make fun of you? Yeah, probably. But you've got to be okay with that.
Who cares? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's who you want to be. You've got to decide who you want to be with your identity, which that's what I heard with those stories that you were sharing there with us, Greg. Anything more like that? I love that. I love this discussion back and forth about this subject. It's so important that if people can really grasp the idea, think through who they are today. Who are they being? Not what they're doing, not their occupation. Who are they being? And then who do they want to be moving forward? Who do they want to become? And if they start answering those questions, then they can start achieving so many more things because they'll just kind of let go of that baggage that's just holding them back.
Yeah. Well, first off, I like the fact that you're aware of how you can change and how you like appropriate change. Like you're 100%. You're not like the weaning off kind of person because
I've tried that. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah. And that's important, right? Because you kind of know your roadmap to, if you want to make a change, whether it's, stop drinking or, increasing extra, whatever it is, like, it doesn't even matter. You know how to do it as opposed to, I know I want to achieve this goal, but how am I going to do this? And then it's trial and error. And then when sometimes you try it and then it doesn't work, you get discouraged maybe, and then you just quit altogether. But no, you're in a good position where you're like, you know what? I know it's going to be 100% for the most part. And weaning off is not going to work for me. So you literally have like the success roadmap. Once you commit to it, there's no like falling off or no excuses that you can kind of give yourself, right? Because it's going to work because you've done it before.
I have done it before. And that's what I want to encourage everybody out there to do it as well. If they haven't yet, try it. Try it with some things. Like you mentioned there, I just want to bring that up as a point as well, is that, you will fall off. You will make mistakes. You will start and stop. I've started and stopped so many times with my eating patterns, with even my own personal development, right? Listening to things, reading books, going to different classes and seminars, really just trying to fill my mind up with good, positive things. Am I perfect at it? No. Am I better than I used to be? 100%. But I will just keep moving forward. So that's maybe another point to make. And you said it right there, Greg. I just want to maybe just put, a little asterisk beside it, just kind of bring it to highlight, is that yes, it's not a perfect straight line. Success of any kind, I don't care what you're trying to achieve. It's, people envision this big final outcome that they're trying to achieve. And yeah, we want to get there. We want to get there super fast, but that's not how life is. There's always zigs and zags. There's a bunch of pivots. I'm pivoting all the time with my life. And you just have to find out what's right for you. The point with this conversation today is I just want to bring it to your awareness that you need to figure out what this identity is within yourself. Who is it that your life, you're obviously living it today. Is it your life, or is it through a filter of a lot of beliefs, a lot of things that we've been taught growing up that may or may not be true? I still love that idea. Just because it's a belief doesn't make it true. So challenge that within yourself today. And that's really what I want to do with this conversation today. And understand that, yes, just because I make a decision that I'm not going to do something today doesn't mean that you're perfect from here on out, because I don't think that's a good expectation to set for yourself. Now, can you try and give your best effort every single day? 100%, right? But don't beat yourself up. So that's where that negative self-talk might come in, right? Self-doubts. And then you just revert back to your old ways, just beating yourself up over. So it's like with your health, Greg. If the first time you ate something that wasn't necessarily on your current diet to get to where you are today, having that drink, even for example, you don't just throw it all away and go back to where you were drinking the sodas and the pops and all the different foods and all that kind of stuff. It's not that you just throw it all away. You just step back and you realize, okay, I need to get back in the driver's seat, right? Get back in control. And when you do that, then you just make a different decision. It's a choice. There again, it becomes a choice for you to make a different one, to the point where you can then start stacking those good choices versus going back to your old ways, your old beliefs, your old identity. And that's really what I want folks to really take away from today, is to stretch themselves into an identity that they want, right? For themselves. Who do they want to be? Who do they want to become? And when you start figuring that out, that's when you can start stepping into this great person that you were truly meant to be. And that's when it's super exciting.
Yeah, and just kind of connect those two, the identity and the outcome, right? I know a lot of people, especially with goals, they set goals and they want the outcome. But I think identity and belief and the conversation we're having here today, it's more of, and I've heard this on other people's podcasts and in books and stuff, so this is not my own idea, but it's, who you're becoming while you're trying to achieve that outcome, which is mostly external, and it's just a result of what you're doing and what you're becoming, right? So in my example, when I was, losing my weight, I was becoming a healthier person. I was becoming like somebody who was more confident in accepting the fact that, hey, I can do this. I can achieve that, not only achieve that outcome, but I can follow through, and I'm not going to start, like you said, and then have a stumble. And then once you stumble, you just quit. I'm not good enough to do this. This isn't for me. Instead saying, you know what, I made it, I'm losing weight. I made a mistake. I had a couple of pieces of pizza that I shouldn't have had. That's fine. Get right back on it. And that's the real gem of it, is that's who I'm becoming. I'm becoming somebody who can make a mistake and then quickly adjust to it and realize it and be self-aware of, yeah, I just made a mistake. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to crumble. It's not going to, take me out of my goal, because I'm becoming somebody who is more resilient and determined, and we're all going to make mistakes along the way. The people who succeed are the ones that just keep on moving forward, because failure is always going to be a part of success. And I think one of the quotes is like, failure is 99% of success, meaning you fail all the time, but you have to get back up and be resilient and really just keep driving forward. And that's your identity, of becoming a person who is determined, at least in my experience anyway. And like I said, it just becomes a lot easier. It's like a muscle that you work out. Once you have done it once or twice, you're like, oh, this is actually pretty easy, or easier to create that new identity and stick with it. So anyway, that's kind of my experience and my connection between identity and the outcome when talking about goals.
Love it. So the idea, folks, of the art of becoming. One thing when I was once again starting out on my journey, I would become more. I would just say that to myself all the time. Become more. Who am I becoming? Just question yourself. So then maybe that's another big takeaway that you can do. It's not going to cost you anything. That's the best part. This doesn't cost you anything other than some time and some attention, right? You need to start thinking through the thoughts that you're having in your own head, the dialogue that you're having, even the conversations that you might be having with other people, right? Once you start to recognize and realize that these thoughts and these beliefs, you're going to start seeing them everywhere. You're going to start hearing them from other people, right? Because that's what we do, right? We have discussions. We talk about these things, these identities that we have of ourselves. Once you start seeing them in other people, then you can start recognizing them obviously within yourself. And when you do that, you can become and make some different changes and become a different version of yourself. So it's the art of becoming. It's that who do you have to become for this end result with Greg with his weight loss? Who did he have to become in the process? This journey. It's a journey. So we get caught up on the destination, which we want to achieve a destination. I'm not saying that, but we get so fixated on the destination that we forget it's the journey. It's the art of becoming is just as important, if not more important, than the goal itself. So just think with that today, folks, is who are you becoming today? Who do you identify yourself as being? If you don't like it, change it. It's a script. You're writing the script of your own life every single day, and you get to change it. That's the beauty of it. You're in charge. You're in control. Now, if you have people that have some authority over you because of the beliefs and the things that they're trying to impose on you, you have the decision to make whether or not you want to allow that to continue to happen. So, for example, with my father, as I mentioned, he wasn't a terrible man at all, but he had such a grip on me and my beliefs when I was in my late 20s to early 30s that I moved. I had to get away. I just had to leave. I had to get away from that man. When I realized that he had such a grip on my thoughts and my beliefs and how I was being, and I realized that I wanted to take control, I literally moved. I moved away from him. And it was strange and it was different. And it took me a little while to understand and then comprehend and then start thinking for myself and start making my own decisions and becoming who I wanted to be. But I will say that that decision that I made back then has led me to where I am today, to continue to become who I'm meant to be a better father, to be a better grandfather, to be a better friend to Greg here and to you out there listening to us today. So it's a challenge. I just wanted to bring it to your awareness today as a challenge to really question these beliefs that you've been brought up to think for yourself and about yourself, and really go to work on the ones that you don't necessarily care for, right? That you want to change, because you are 100% able to do that. And I just wanted to share some of the stories some of the things that I've done as examples, and some of the things Greg shared today as well has been fantastic. Any more thoughts, man, before we wrap this one up, bring this in for a close? I think we've done a good job, I believe, I guess we'll get some feedback from folks if they liked or didn't like the discussion. But yeah, this is always a lot of fun for me. Any more thoughts?
Yeah, I would just reiterate, beliefs can always create or they can destroy. And like Randy said, the choice is always ours, whether we know or not that the choice is ours, because obviously, like you said, there's some outside factors that can play, but ultimately, you have to decide, do I want to take that person's belief and, take it as my own and believe it as true? Or do I want to just say, hey, that's Randy's thought and good for him for thinking that way, but that doesn't suit me or doesn't help me move forward with my goals. I'm going to think something differently. Obviously, that's totally cool. As long as your beliefs are helping you create the life that you want, that's what we're here for on this podcast. So beliefs can create or they can destroy. It's up to you.
Love it. We're going to leave it right there. So folks, if you enjoyed this conversation, reach out to us. Let us know. info@richmind.co. Shoot us an email. Let us know. Give us some feedback. Whether or not you're liking the discussions back and forth with Greg and I, we're trying to come up with topics, some things that we're dealing with, even day to day, right? Share some of our own personal stories to try to maybe help drive home some of the ideas. Maybe you're seeing some of the resemblances in your own life. And that's kind of the whole point, is that when I started on my journey, when I first discovered podcasts, and that's why I'm so passionate about this medium of content, right, is that I learned so much about myself because I was listening to other people and their stories and how they were able to adjust and change and had courage and then pivoted and all of the things that we're trying to talk about here within the Rich Mind podcast. That's what we want to do for you. So leave us some feedback. Let us know. You can go out to your podcast platform of choice. Leave us a review there as well. That would be much appreciated. And share this with your family and friends if you think that they would find value in it as well. We always appreciate your time and attention. The next episode, Greg was lucky enough, by the time this releases, the course that he attended, he actually attended an online course. It was held by Tony Robbins. It was actually, he brought it to me. He's like, man, this was fantastic. This was great stuff. We need to share this with our listeners and our followers. And I'm like, okay. I didn't actually have time to attend, which is unfortunate. But he did. He took all kinds of notes. And he wants to share some of those big takeaways from this. I think it was a 3-day event, if I'm not mistaken. It was an online virtual 3-day event. He wanted to share some of those ideas with you. And I thought we would have a great discussion about that. So if that sounds like something of interest of you, join us on the next episode of the Rich Mind podcast. And we'll look forward to bringing that to you then. So go out there, have a fantastic day, challenge your identity, challenge your beliefs. And I promise you, if you do that on a consistent basis and keep working on becoming this person, this better version of yourself, you'll start living a life that you truly desire. And I wish and hope for that for you moving forward. So go out there, have a great day. We'll talk very soon. Bye now.